Loud. Okay, so for everybody, right? So we had school at 7 o'clock, and well, it's just you and I, Mary. So
Well,
Harry's back.
Harry was there a minute ago.
Oh, right. Okay. So we had shul at 7. I want to give the shir in person anyway, and people can stay. I invited people to stay, but I think when they saw I had this, they thought I might hit them over the head with it. And when I brought in this, I scared them all off. They thought that rather sit behind a screen where they're safe and secure. But there might be a problem because we had shul at 7, which we Zoom. And then the shir that I have also now is also on Zoom. So if people try to get on at 7:22 or 7:24, we were still davening. We wouldn't. It would have just said there was another lesson in progress or something, and they want to be allowed on. So hello, Rochelle. How are you? I know that Harry is racing home from shul to be there. I invited him to stay, but when he saw my stick, my stone, I think it frightened him off. Okay, so you're probably wondering, why do I have this stone, this brick, inside this little little contraption? So I will get to that and I will explain it all in good time. So what I wanted to focus on tonight was the idea of kashering and koshering our kitchen for Pesach. Last week we spoke about cleaning the house, which we said one doesn't have to be overly crazy about. And we made the joke that this year, Pesach, you can do all your cleaning before spring even starts, right? You have another 6 days till spring starts. So you can do all your cleaning and you don't even have to spring clean. And we said you only have to worry about crumbs that are big, that are edible size, right? These tiny little crumbs all over the place. You don't need to worry. Of course, you should do a good vacuum, we said, and check things. But when it comes to the kitchen, where you have to be worried about eating your chametz, then, of course, it is a different story, and we have to make sure that there is nothing, no residue, no nothing. And we also have to make sure there is no infusion of taste, which was what we are going to talk about. And I have all these flashy machines and so on. In fact, I think maybe I'll go to the sink, because I got to kosher the sink for Passover anyway here, because we're having our Seder, so maybe we'll give a live demonstration. Since there's nobody here in shul to walk up and down, we'll go to the shul sink and do a demonstration shortly. Okay, so the kitchen. Kitchen obviously must be clean. So the surface tops must be clean, because if you have real bits of chametz lying about, if you have piece of breadcrumbs lying about, those breadcrumbs could get in your food on Pesach. And if you eat it, you have a problem of eating chametz on Pesach. So you got to make sure that the surfaces where you keep your food, your closets, your cupboards, that you're storing your Pesach food, you have to make sure is free of chametz. And I should warn you, because this happened to me this week. You can get cans of tuna, right? And the cans of tuna are slightly indented. So the edge goes up and the can is slightly indented and there's a little groove around the edge. Yes. So I went through my closet, my pantry, that's the word. I went through my pantry and I was looking for all unopened kosher for Passover stuff, right? I thought if it's not opened, I can use it for Passover. And I found 3 or 4 tins of tuna, cans of tuna, as you call it in this country. Harry's probably used to tins of tuna, right? In South Africa, they say tins of tuna. Here it's cans of tuna. Okay, so I separated cans of tuna and had a few other things. And I noticed, thank God, that in these little grooves, because obviously I have kids and we have all sorts of stuff in our closets and things, I noticed in these little tiny grooves on the edge of the can on the top was actual real bits of cookies, that crumbled and crumbs at the bottom of the bags had actually fallen down in the pantry and had lodged themselves in the little groove on top of the can. I should have brought one with me to show you, but I'm sure you get the gist of what I'm saying.
Yes.
So obviously I had to wash it out to make sure it was free from crumbs. So if you do go and look for your pantry about things that are kosher for Pesach, make sure that the exterior is, of course, clean. Because I could have opened that can on Pesach, not looking or realizing, and then these little breadcrumbs or cookie crumbs could have fallen into the tuna, and I would have had a nice, my tuna and matzah, thinking, this is great, tuna and matzah, Pesach, and really, I was eating breadcrumbs. I know Harry doesn't wear a strimal on Shabbos, but they warn the Hasidim who wear strimals, those are the fur hats that they wear, they eat the kiddushim, or they certainly used to before COVID hit, and sometimes, they put it down, and sometimes bits of chametz from the kiddushim, they can get lodged in the fur, and they could fall out over Pesach. So you have to pay extra attention. And I just cleaned it actually, but I saw I had a piece of cookie thing that was stuck to the top of my hat, which I cleaned because it didn't look very nice. But you see, you can have little bits of crumbs on there and stuff. So therefore, you think, oh yes, I'm on Pesach, I'm doing really well. I'm at the Seder night, I'm really, shuckling away, and I'm doing fantastic. And really, all these crumbs are falling into your hat. So just be, I think the word I could use is streetwise. Got to be streetwise about things to make sure what can fall in. And also, I'm going to go to the kitchen, actually. Let me go to the kitchen, because you can just stay in your seats on Zoom, and we don't need to worry about everybody following me, and we can actually do some real demonstrations. It's dark. I need to turn the light on. Hold on. Let's do a real demonstration. There we go. Here is the cool little mini kitchen. I'm now going to fill up my kettle. So I can say, here's one I prepared earlier. Like they do in all the cooking shows. I feel very grand doing all of this. You see, shame there's not more people watching. So let me put this to boil. Right, and what else do I need here? Okay, so do they have cans of tuna in here? I could just remind everybody. No, they don't believe in. Yes, they do. Yeah. Just as what I was saying before, I was referring to this little groove here, right? That things could fall in. So be streetwise if you're taking things out of your cupboard, to make sure that nothing has fallen in. Right. So when it comes to kashering, we have to be worried that our sinks or our pots and our pans have been infused with the taste of chametz. As we know, and I've done this sheer a few times with other things, and about checking vegetables for bugs. I used to teach a class every few months for when I worked for Kosher Miami. And I used to say to people, this is what we are doing is not magic. This is not a magic click your fingers and it's done. Everything we are doing makes sense. It's logical and it makes sense. It might not make sense to you and me, but it certainly makes sense to those who understand. So basically, Harry, you're a chemist, right? So you'll be able to understand this better than me. So as we know, let's say metals. Let's take metals. If you heat up metals, the molecular structure, I think, expands is the right word, and other molecules can embed themselves in the structure of the metal, which is how taste, if I get a nice piece of pasta and hot piece of pasta and I put it on the bottom of my sink, my metal sink, the sink will become infused with the taste of the pasta, because the molecule taste will somehow in the molecular structure. Harry, am I doing a good job so far? Is that about right? Okay, good. So what we have to do is we have to heat up that structure to allow we have to heat up the molecules or the atoms, whatever you call it, and we have to allow this taste to come out. We have to allow it to come out. And that is the basis of what we are doing. So as I say, it's not magic. It's not some sort of spiritual cleaning and whatever. This is logical, down to earth, sensible stuff. So let's take our thing. I'm going to change my camera view. Hold on. Right. So here we have this metal sink, right? You see, metal sink. So, and this is where my big stone can come into use. So what is the way that things usually become non-kosher? They spill into the sink. So you don't heat anything on the sink because there's no heat source on the sink, right? Because there's nothing underneath that's hot. So things spill. So in order to cleanse it from spilling, we have to spill hot water on it. That's the basic of what we're doing with the sink. And the same with the sides and the surfaces, that we have to pour the water to extract the taste of the hot chametz that's been on. So before, oh, my kettle is making a noise. So let me come out here. Let me turn the lights on here. So a few things to remember. Before we kosher anything for Passover, it has to wait 24 hours of nothing hot inside it. You have to wait 24 hours. The reason for that is because after 24 hours, the taste is so, what's the word I'm looking for? The taste is so destroyed from what it was originally. It's not really recognizable as it was. So when you're bringing it out, it's not coming back up as real food, because otherwise, oh, I brought out these wonderful molecules of taste, but then as soon as it touches the surface again, it's going to reabsorb itself, right? Because it's going to touch it again. So we have to wait 24 hours. So when the molecules, the taste is coming out, it's not causing a problem of getting reabsorbed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, and of course, the surface must be completely dry, because if it's wet, when I pour my water on it, the water that's lying on there is going to prevent the heat from penetrating into the molecular surface, because the water will act as a barrier. So the surface must be completely dry, not used for 24 hours. And of course, it must be completely clean, because if it's not clean, you're going to have the opposite of what you want. You're going to take, let's say, there's a little piece of breadcrumb stuck to your side. Instead of taking out everything that you want to extract, you're going to absorb this piece of food crumbs into your sink. So that's counterproductive. So you got to make sure the sink is clean. Now, I'll tell you a little trick. When you check for cleanliness, they say don't check with your eyes, check with your hands. So let me change my camera again. So you have to rub your hand around, because you could feel if there's any schmaltz or any, grease, right? You can feel, right? If it's nice and smooth, you can feel, oh, this is wet. So if I'm going to kasher it properly, which I want to do, this here should be discarded, put away, and a new one should be bought, because this is made out of plastic, and so on, to get a new one. So let me just dry this, because if I'm going to do this properly, we got to do it properly. Right. So now my kettle is boiled. The kettle must be boiling completely hot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pour the water all over the sink. It's better to do the bottom of the sink first, because otherwise, if I do the sides, the bottom is going to get wet. And then I have a problem of not being able to kasher it because it's wet. So the best thing to do, I'm going to quickly boil it again, because the kettle has to be boiling. And I'm going to take this boiling water. Hold on. I don't want to burn myself, so let me put my camera over here. No, you can't see. Bye. Hold on. Let's try and find a good angle for you guys. Well, I'll hold it. I'll manage. If I get burnt and I scream, I'll sue the shore. No. Okay. So here, I'm going to take this kettle, and it has to go, see, on all the ports. And you hear the bang of the metal expanding. See, the hot water has to come directly from the kettle. Then you do the sides. See, the water is running down the side. And then you do this side here. And then this side. Careful not to burn yourself. When we do this professionally, I have big gloves, right? And now the sink is kosher. You see all the steam coming out? And now, if I touch this, you'll feel it's so hot. I have extracted all the taste of the chametz. Hello, Joel. I see you made it home already. Right. So now a lot of people will turn on the cold faucet and wash away any of the things that have come out, the taste molecules, and wash them away. See, I'm still touching it now. What's this, 35, 40 seconds after I poured the boiling water, and you see it's very, very hot. So it does work. And I don't know if you heard the big, the metal expanding and the crack, which is always a good sign that you've done a good job. Now, you have to pour it directly from the kettle. So doing this, like this, is no good, because the water has got to be continuously touching the kettle. So you got to have a continuous stream like this. Doing this is no good. And if I was doing the sides, which I'm not going to do now because I haven't got any towels to wipe up the mess. But again, you would pour it up and down the sides, and that's how you would kosher it for Passover. So why do I have this stone that is frightening everybody and scared you all off from staying for the shear? So this stone in Hebrew is called an even melubenet, which means a heated stone. And what people will do is they will heat this on the stove top till this gets really, really hot. And they will place it on here, like so. Hold on. They will place it on here. So when they pour the water over it, the water will bubble on the surface. And therefore, that is a much better way of kashering. You don't have to do it, but that's what a lot of people do. I'll give you a little example with my blowtorch. So with this blowtorch, Harry, close your eyes on what I'm doing to the shul stuff. I am going to heat the bottom surface of, let me heat the bottom surface of the sink with my blowtorch. It's going to heat it up. Then I'm going to pour the water. You will see that the water bubbles on the surface of the sink. And when it bubbles, that is a stronger level of heat. And a lot of people say that is a better way of kashering. So if you want to do that, again, I don't want to get too complicated, but again, so let me turn this round. So I'm heating up the surface of the metal. If I heat up this little area here, and then I pour some boiling water, you should see it bubble, watch. Do you see it bubbling? You see it bubbling? There you go. You see it bubbling? So that, by bubbling it on the water, is making it into a higher level of kashering, assuming you don't ruin what you're kashering at the time. Harry, you can open your eyes now. Okay, so those are the two ways of kashering. Either we pour direct boiling water from the kettle. Now, I advise, if you're going to kosher for Passover, go out or go online and buy yourself one of these electric kettles. They cost about $8-9 in Walmart. One of the advantages of these are, A, they can heat up themselves in about 5 minutes. Oh, I've made a big mess over here. And they'll say tomorrow, why is there all water over the floor, Rabbi? And I'll say, nothing to do with me. No, I won't. Okay, so this heats up on its own, number one, in 3-4 minutes. You saw it was very quick. But also, this is very easy to pour. If you use a pot on the stove, a pan, then you have very little control over it, right? Because you have a massive surface area, the water pours out, and it's much harder to control. Here, it's very easy to control the flow and to control everything. So my advice is, and you can use it every year, Harry, a South African, probably has it for his teas every day, right? You have one of these for your tea and coffee, Harry? Yes, us English people, we have them anyway. But so on. So I advise, if you're going to kasher your stuff, you can do this. If you don't want to kasher it, if you feel it's too much for you, it's too difficult or physically demanding, there is a second way of doing this, and that is to completely cover the sides. So you cover it with something that's not going to obviously get when the water comes on it. What's the word I'm looking for? Soaked, right? You've got to have some decent plastic that is not going to shrivel up every time a bit of water falls on it. And then you should use trivets. So every time you put a hot pot on your side, don't put it directly on the side. Use a trivet so the pot is not touching the surface. So you don't have to kasher this. You can just cover it. If you don't want to kasher the sink, again, you have to line the surface of the sink. And here we go. Here is a bowl. And you could put an insert. I mean, this doesn't fit very well. This is a massive sink. But you can cover it with, let's say, aluminum foil or something. And you can use a sink insert. I was looking up online. You can get a proper sink insert that has already a hole, a drain hole already drilled in online for about $22. So that is a way to do it. I just see somebody put a question, can you kasher an enamel sink? That is an excellent question. One of the few things that you cannot kosher are things like stone, porcelain, and I believe enamel as well. But to make 100% sure, I will look it up for you, Joel, just to make 100% sure. Let me leave all this stuff over here. So that's why people have this stone to heat up the water, but you don't worry about that. We have the blowtorch, and we have the thing. If you want to use the refrigerator, doesn't need to be koshered, just needs to be clean. So you make sure you wipe it down. Some people will cover it with aluminum foil, and so on. We don't have any ovens here, do we? No, we don't have any ovens in the shul. So ovens are very important. I don't use an oven. I don't use my chametz oven for Pesach. I have a separate one, a separate tabletop oven, and that's what a lot of people do. First of all, it saves you a lot of cleaning and a lot of issues with that. So let's say you're one of the lucky people who has a self-cleaning oven. Self-cleaning oven gets up to about 950 degrees and it burns out all the residue when you turn on the self-clean. So that doesn't need to be cleaned because it's going to burn away all the food residue. I mean, I advise you to have a quick clean of it because otherwise you could get a lot of smoke and stuff. But I would then turn it on. It will burn away any chametz residue. It will burn out the walls so hot that any of the taste of the chametz that's absorbed in the walls will come out. And then you can use your oven for Passover afterwards. Some people also cover the food. They line the walls and so on, which is why a lot of people won't use ovens because they say the oven. Anyway, we don't want to get too bogged down. But in America, it's perfectly accepted way of turning on the self-clean, and that kashes your oven. Now, if you have one of these new lower temperature water-based cleanings like Aqualift or whatever, then that does not work, and you will have to do the second method. The second method is making sure you scrub and you scrub and you scrub, and when you think you finished scrubbing, scrub some more with some caustic soda like St. Moritz or Easy Off. Of course, you must be very careful because these things are very corrosive, and especially in a small, not well ventilated area, they could be very dangerous. So don't say to everybody, oh, the rabbi told me to do it and I got ill. But I'm giving you a warning. These chemicals, Harry will tell you as a chemist, these chemicals are seriously corrosive and could damage your lungs, which is why they advise to be very, very careful. Anyway, make sure you clean the racks, the walls, the sides properly so there's no residue, no black old chametz or whatever that's got a life to it. If it's completely black that you touch it, it shrivels up, then that's okay. But the problem is then it could be covering an area that's underneath it. So you have to make sure the racks are clean and everything is clean. Turn on the oven at the highest temperature for at least, I say 2 hours. They say you could do it for 1 hour, an hour and 15 minutes, but be very careful. If you see a device that says an hour, that's only an hour from when it reaches the temperature, right? It could take 15, 20 minutes to reach that temperature. So I tell everybody to keep it simple, 2 hours. Put it on 500 or 550 for 2 hours from start to finish. And assuming your oven gets up to temperature in 20 minutes or 25 minutes, then you should be good to go. Now we come on to stovetops. Stovetops are a big issue. If you have a glass stovetop, you have a problem. The problem is that Ashkenazi custom is not to kosher glass in any way for Pesach, which means that a lot of people won't kosher them for Pesach. However, if you do, you can turn on each burner for 15 minutes. And it's the same with the gas stove, and it's the same with the electric stove. Turn on each burner for about 15 minutes. It glows, it gets red hot. It will burn out any residue that you have on the stovetops. So that's the way to do it. Problem with the glass stovetop is the areas in between the glass don't get hot enough to kosher. So if you have a smooth top glass and you kosher the burners, only the burners are kosher. So you must remember, you cannot put your pots outside the lines of the burners. Or alternatively, and this is what I tell people to do, and a few people did, and they say it's been fantastic, is they buy what they call an induction plate, which is a metal plate, a disc, and that raises, it's about a few millimeters thick or this thick, and it's an induction plate, so it heats the whole plate. It's perfect for heating the food, and it stops you from moving your pot off because it raises up the pot, so you're not going to push it further away onto the areas that have not been kosher. And if any food falls out of your pot onto the other glass area in the middle, that bit cannot be eaten on Pesach because that's fallen onto a non-kosher bit. But if you have an electric oven with grates, again, if you have a self-clean oven, you can put the grates in the oven unless they'll get ruined if they're too thin. Again, turn them on 15, 20 minutes, and therefore they should all be kosher, no problem. So let's think again. We've done the stove. We've talked about glass stove top. Yes, we spoke about ovens. We spoke about sinks. We spoke about side tops. We spoke about refrigerators. Right, microwaves. Okay, here's the thing with microwaves. Microwaves, again, very easy in terms of the KASHERIN. Once it's perfectly clean, and don't think it's easy to clean a microwave, because some microwaves have a little screws that you have to take off, and there's little clips at the top of the microwave, and all around there is filthy. So you have, I can't describe it without showing you, but if you look inside your microwave on the top, sometimes you'll see a little catchment where you can unscrew it, and the stuff there, you'll see that's caked on with all sorts of grease. So if you clean it, make sure all that area is clean. Now, if you have an enamel or porcelain interior of the microwave, which some microwaves do, then it cannot be kosher. But if it's plastic or if it's metal, whatever, no, I don't think you do have metal interiors of microwaves, then you can be kosher. Take a glass, put it with water, turn on the microwave for 10 minutes, it boils up, and then good. Then you move the glass to a different space and do another 10 minutes, because then you've not kashered the bit under where the glass was the first time. So you have to move it, and then you kosher the other bit. However, the glass plate cannot be koshered, because we said that the Ashkenazim don't kosher glass. So if you have a microwave that has a glass plate, either you buy a new one for Passover, or you use it without the glass plate, if you can. So again, put the glass plate away for Passover, you know, the glass turntable thing on the bottom there, put that away for Pesach, and then you can kasher the rest of the microwave, but it must be clean. Now, I tell you all, have a look in your microwaves, look at the top roof, and you'll see sometimes it's on the side. You'll see like a little area where the microwaves actually come in, and there's holes and there's rivets. You'll see it's absolutely full. Well, depending on how you use your microwave, of course. I'm talking about my house with lots of kids, and we use it 5 times a day for all sorts of spilly things. Maybe you guys are much more cultured and so on. But still, have a look, because when things splatter in your microwave, they get splattered in there, and that needs to be clean. Because otherwise, when you're koshering it, again, you're just koshering it, and Mr. Chometz goes, hello, I'm still here. I'm ruining it again for you. Again, it's all logical, and it all makes sense. It's not magic. It's not some sort of ritual cleaning that you say a few prayers and everything is good. It all makes sense, and it is all logical. Grills. So a lot of people like to use their grill for Passover, which is what I koshered yesterday. Yesterday I was out koshering the Grove, and I came home all hot because you're in the heats of thousands of degrees. I thought, you know what? I'm all hot and bothered. I'll kosher my grill tonight because I can get away with before I cool down. So again, the grill, you put food directly on the grill, which means the food is totally absorbed in the racks of the grill because the food sits on the grill. There's no pot in between or anything like that. It sits on the grill and it cakes into the grill. So you need to heat the grill to 950 degrees in order to extract the taste of the food. So there's 2 ways of doing it. There's the cheating way, which is if you have a self-cleaning oven and you're going to do that anyway for Passover, you can put your grill grates into the oven and it will kosher it at 900 degrees for you, and you are good to go. Otherwise, you have to do what I did yesterday, which is you put coals all over your grill. You turn on the bottom for 15 minutes, and I use my little gun. You know, I have a temperature gun. You see the coals are like 1,000 degrees, 1,100 degrees sometimes when they burn. And then you have the heat from underneath. You have the coals from on top, and that is caking. That is consuming this grill with heat and fire. After 15 minutes, you can turn the gas off and whatever, and then you can leave the coals to burn out. If you have a hood, what's it called? Yeah, a hood that you close, then that needs to be closed too, because that also becomes non-kosher chametz, because, have it. So put it on, turn it on for 15 minutes, close the top of the grill, because then you need that to be kosher too. So that's a grill. You asked me, Joel, about enamel. So let me have a look. Enamel, you spell that with an E, right? Enamel. Okay, let's have a look. Enamel, A, B, C, D, E. Okay, no, not in this book. Okay. Not in this book. Let's have a look in this book. I'm cheating now. It's all right. You're allowed to cheat. I remember when I became a rabbi, there is a prohibition of answering a halachic question in front of your rabbi, right? You're not, even if you know the answer, there's a prohibition of answering. That's why Shmuel, the prophet, was going to be put to death. The story in Shmuel, the beginning, and therefore that was the whole thing. So my Rebbe said, if you answer a question without looking in the sefer to check, it's also like you're answering a question in front of your Rebbe, because your books are the Rebbe. So that's what it used to. And when I became a rabbi in the test, right, the smicha test, I beat him at his own game. I came to my smicha test and I brought all my books with me. I said, you said I cannot answer the questions without looking at the books. So obviously I got to look in the books for the smicha test. And he liked it, and I did. So, it wasn't like I beat him, because I think he would have had no problem with it anyway, type of thing, But so I brought my Shulchan Aruch to the test. So I was able, but obviously when they test you, they don't test you. I remember it was calculated. It was one easy question that was clearly written, a clear answer, followed by a very long-winded conceptual question where you had to use 3 or 4 or 5 different areas of law, bring them together and come up with the answer. And then the next question was an easy, simple one, yes or no, or this or the other. And then and it was an hour and a half, my smicha test. And actually, when I finished, I thought I'd failed. Because I thought I was not doing very well, but I passed. So, and just while I'm looking for this, I'll tell you another anecdote about getting smicha. It's interesting. The Rebbe, he gave me smicha, was my big Rebbe. He died last year from coronavirus, and his yortzeit is this Sunday. So this should be in the Shama for memory for him. Rav Yosef Yaakov ben Osher Yaakov ben. I'm not sure. Osher Yaakov West Ham. Anyway, and I came. First time we had booked the test, and I was all excited. Knocked on his door. He said, "Oh, sorry, something has come up. I can't give you the smicha now." Then he looked at me and says, "Are you upset?" He asked me twice, "Are you upset? Are you upset?" I said, "No." Okay. So then again, the next time we came, same thing. "Sorry, something's come up. I can't do it." And again, "Are you upset? Are you upset?" I said, "No, of course I understand." 4 times this happened. 4 times over a 6-month period. Eventually, the 5th time I came, he said, "Oh, come in." And I realized, I never spoke to him about this afterwards, but I realized what he was doing. Each time he was telling me no, it was 2 things. A, because what do you do when your smicha has been cancelled? You have to carry on learning it, right? You go over it again and again and again. So each time he cancelled it, he made me learn all the stuff again, because, it's cancelled. I've got to keep going. I can't just sit back and forget it all now because I got a test. So again, I think was a way of pushing me to go better, go more. And then eventually at the 5th time, he said, yes, come in. And so on. And he was also, I think, testing my reactions. Are you upset? Are you upset? Every time he would ask me, "Are you upset? Are you upset?" So hold on, let me look it up. I have it. Hold on. Hopefully you can still hear me with me changing the screen. Just give me a few seconds. I'll check it up. I see you sent me, Joel. Enamel is the same as porcelain. Okay, well, porcelain definitely can't be kosher, and I'm almost sure enamel can't. But let's just check it up 100% for you. My in-laws, where I lived for a bit, they had a porcelain sink, so I could never kosher it. So we had to cover it, and we used bowls, we used inserts, we used the rack at the bottom, which is what you have to do. Okay, KASHERIN. Let's do enamel. Enamel, here we go. E, enameled pots. Yes, may not be koshered. So, yes, enamel cannot be koshered. because as you say, but all sorts of things like granite and formica, quartz, any of these things can all be kosher. Just before we ask for questions, there's this OU guide, which is free. You can also download it at ouguide.org. The CRC have a guide, crc.org, and the CRC have a fantastic, what I just looked up, have a fantastic app. So I advise you, go to your app store, it's free, go download CRC app, CRC, looks like this, right? The top is a triangle with CRC in it. They have all sorts of information. They have all the commonly accepted symbols of what's kosher, what you can use, what you can't use. They have a wonderful guide for Pesach. You can look up these things that I just looked up, what can be kosher, what can't be kosher. So my advice to you all is to use these resources that you have for your questions. Okay, somebody else said something. Hold on. I think enamel porcelain. Yes, right. Okay. So yeah, porcelain and enamel cannot be kosher. Okay. Anybody have any questions or anything they want to know?
No.
No?
I'm
Good job. I'm not going to
downloading
do
the
a
app.
question and answer session because in all these times I've asked for questions, nobody's asked me a question. So, okay, if that's it, then I will go clean up all the mess I made. All right, Harry, mum's the word about what I did at the back of the shul. All right. Okay. Have a good night. Oh, next week we will have a shir, the last shir before Pesach. I want to talk a little bit about the Seder. And then after that, there'll be no shir for a few weeks because it's obviously be Pesach and whatever. Probably 2 weeks after that. For the next 2 weeks, there won't be a shir probably. I don't think our shul have done anything for Pesach. Harry, we haven't got any plans for Pesach, have we? Except for keeping it and having a shul Seder, which I suppose is a pretty big thing to have. But we don't have any other... all right, maybe we'll do something fun. I don't know. I'm always late with this, Harry, right? Harry's the chairman of the board, in case you're wondering why I'm picking on him and always using Harry. It's not just because he's Harry. He's the chairman of the board, and he's the one who can make important decisions or get annoyed that I've ruined the kitchen. So, yes. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.